This is the second time in my career I've had to follow Lonnie Ali behind a lectern. It's a little intimidating. Welcome to Louisville, everyone. We're so glad to see you. I had the pleasure of standing before you in Savannah last year and encouraging you to come, so it's so good to see so many of you here and to have found some new friends. Last year we promised you some good bourbon. I hope you're already into that. If not, we'll take care of that this evening. We promised you some wonderful programming, and we certainly have that. We were not so audacious as to promise you great weather, but we have exceeded expectations. So, great time to go out and be an urbanist and go for a walk. Well, I have one of the greatest jobs in the city of Louisville because I get to oversee economic and community development every day. I get to sell Louisville and brag about Louisville, so if you want to know more about Louisville, come see me. I also get to work with people like you every day, which is the richness of the work. I work with city planners and city dreamers. I work with neighborhood activists. I work with developers. This earful of advocates and this earful of developers. It's a great job to be in the middle of figuring out how you build a great city. Well, one thing you need for a great city is great leadership. And so it is my honor to introduce my mayor and my friend, Greg Fischer, tonight. He was just reelected last year to his third term with a rousing vote of confidence, a hugely affirming vote. That is a recognition of the progress our city has made during his first 8 years in office. In that time in office, Mayor Fischer has earned praise from his fellow mayors, who in a poll in Politico voted him the most innovative mayor in America. He was also named the Public Official of the Year by Governing Magazine. And in 2020, he will become the president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, leading all of the great city thinkers and dreamers. Before becoming mayor, Greg Fischer spent 30 years in business, including co-founding and growing a global company, investing in numerous successful startups, and earning national recognition as the Inc. magazine Entrepreneur of the Year. And I guarantee you he brings that entrepreneurial spirit to what we do every day in city government. Today, Mayor Fischer approaches public service with the belief that each day in an office is an honor and an opportunity to maximize for the people of our hometown. That approach embodies the guidance of the champ, who reminded us always to make the days count. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mayor Greg Fischer.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you, Mary Ellen. I'm so impressed by your all's ability to pronounce Louisville, by the way. Everybody's getting it right. Usually it's all over the place, so fast students here. I appreciate that. And I just want to say the partnership and citizenship and the legacy of Lonnie and the Muhammad Ali family, y'all were just really treated to something special there. Lonnie does not give a lot of speeches because there's so many demands on her to do so, and that was an incredible delivery, and we're really thankful to have Lonnie and the entire Ali family in our city. A couple thank yous before I start. Barry Alberts, David Toms, the local host committee, CEO Lynn Richards. I really appreciate everybody coming together, selecting our city, first off, to host the CNU 27, and for all of our local folks that have put this work together. Thank you all very, very much for producing a great conference here. And thank all of you all for coming to Louisville. It's quite an honor for us. We really appreciate it. We hope it's a testimony to the work that we're trying to do to create a city of innovation, a city of entrepreneurship, a compassionate city, and an equitable city. And I think our country is looking for two cities right now to kind of help us find our way through the fog that I believe that we're in. Tonight, I am going to discuss how Louisville has used techniques around social innovation to help build this place that we call home. Lonnie eloquently described Muhammad's story. His values and his legacy serve as guides and inspirations to us as we work to create the future that I believe people deserve in our city and that they demand in our city. And what really made Ali so notable was a combination of a lot of unique things. strength, speed, coordination, charisma, intelligence, personality. He came of age in a time when the TV generation was just upon us. The Vietnam War, civil rights. It was a time when the nation was in a state like a cauldron. So he combined those times and those gifts with an incredible work ethic. That was the thing he was always disappointed about. People would say how pretty he was, how fast he was, how brave he was. And he just said, why don't they say that I just outworked everybody? That's why I was the greatest. He put in the road work. So he created this platform, unlike anything the world had ever seen, and then he used compassion as that magic sauce with that platform to inspire others. And I believe that we're all put on the face of the earth to make it a better place, to help each other, to lift each other up. So we put the spotlight on the champ, on Muhammad Ali and many others, because it draws people to our city. And when they're drawn to our city, when they visit the Ali Center or they help us with our compassion work, they leave better equipped to make their world a better place, make their city a better place, make their street corner a better place. So in doing that, we believe we're fulfilling our mission as human beings. So this combination of things is what made Ali the person they called the greatest of all time. I think he's the one that came up with that nickname for himself. He was very confident, but he was. And his legacy is a proud example of really when I reflect on the role that I have and look at the history of our city as part of arguably our city's DNA. Abraham Lincoln was born and spent his early years not far from here. The first Jewish person to serve as a Supreme Court Justice, Louis Brandeis, is from our city. We were the first city in the South, we're kind of the northernmost part of the South, to pass a fair housing ordinance, an ordinance that both Muhammad Ali and Dr. Martin Luther King fought for in 1967. We're the first city in Kentucky and one of the first in the South to pass a fairness ordinance, celebrating 20 years this year. It's Pride Week right now, too, by the way, so on Friday night at 7 o'clock, we're having our Pride Parade, which will be a great time if you're not doing anything. We're starting at 7 p.m. at Market and Campbell Streets in Nulu, so come on over and join us in the Pride Parade. We're home of two large seminaries, Presbyterian and Baptist seminaries. We're home of the Festival of Faiths and the Center for Interfaith Relations here. So we got lots of interfaith community that's really focused more on shared spirituality, one common heart. And then we're site of Thomas Merton's 1958 Epiphany, and it is marked right across the street from the Sealback, and there's a historical marker there at 4th and Muhammad Ali. So please check that out. It's a block and a half from here, and I want to take you to that time. It was 1958. Thomas Merton, a monk from the Abbey of Gethsemane, would come in and out of Louisville quite a bit. I never quite understood that. Monks are supposed to stay at the monastery. But he had to travel, and his abbot would allow him to do so. History has it that he spent time in the bar at the Sealback as well, by the way. It's a nice bar if you haven't checked it out. But it was at that street corner in 1958. So at that time, that would have been a hustling, bustling street corner. People would have been shopping. They would have been coming to beautiful theaters like this. And his epiphany is what he said. Quote, "In Louisville, at the corner of 4th and Walnut, in the center of the shopping district, I was suddenly overwhelmed with the realization that I loved all these people, that they were mine and I was theirs. And if only everybody could realize this, but it cannot be explained. There is no way of telling people that they are all walking around shining like the sun." This beautiful metaphor of the goodness in all of us that we're all born with, the light inside of each of us, is what provides us inspiration. And it's these forebears of history, this epiphany, that brought us to the focus of compassion, to our work at Louisville Metro Government. Because we believe that our city should be a platform for human potential to flourish. That's what cities are when people come together, platforms. So for what? Let me say it one more time. We believe that our city should be a platform for human potential to flourish. That's our definition of compassion. It's an action word. It's not just empathy, it's what do you do with it? The work we do to help human beings have flourishing potential in our community. And so I'm not a lifelong politician, thankfully, and my work in the private sector taught me that when you treat everybody with dignity and respect, when you train people, when you share profits, when you empower people, wonderful things can happen. And the joy that you have in work becomes a vehicle for you to have more power to do good with your family, with your neighborhood, with your place of worship. So this is what all organizations should be about. So those experiences gave me an unshakable conviction that if you treat people with respect and train and empower and do all the right things, they not only rise to the occasion, but there's really no other entity that can compete with you, because most people don't follow just this basic formula for success. So I always did a lot of volunteer work when I was in the private sector, and I said, can we bring this notion of compassion and high performance to a city government where we could allocate resources in a more effective way and try to change the culture of a city, evolve the culture of a city so that it, in fact, could be a platform for human potential to flourish. And that's every part of the city. Roads, bridges, buildings, parks, buses, all the interactions that we have together. And when you think about it, it's really not a new idea. People move to cities in a belief that they can achieve more by being around other people. That's why cities developed in the first place. It's why we live in an urbanizing world. According to the latest U.S. Census, 81% of Americans live in urban areas. 90+% of the GDP of our country is in urban areas. 95% of GDP growth comes in cities. And we all know, according to the UN, 68% of the global population will live in urban areas by 2050. So the question becomes, how do you make a city a platform for human potential? All these things that we're talking about here, that Lonnie's talked about, that I've talked about, I haven't found anybody that doesn't agree with the notion of compassion. Republican, Democrat, white, black, Muslim, Christian, everybody's on board. But how do you do it? And how do you shape the culture of a city? Our city has about 800,000 people, so it's not huge, but it's not small. So the first step in shaping our culture was to declare our values. Any great organization, you can be very clear on how they're going to make decisions through a consistent lens, a consistent filter of values. So when I was sworn in as mayor in January 2011, I said that there would be 3 core values that would guide my administration. Make our city a healthier city, physical health, mental health, environmental health. Make our city even more a city of lifelong learning through formal education, but entrepreneurship, creation of all types, and make us an even more compassionate city. You should have seen the looks I got when I said that. They got health, they got lifelong learning, but they said, compassion, you're supposed to be tough, you're supposed to be a politician, you're supposed to be able to cut people off at the knees. You know, I said, well, my experience is it is more difficult for people to be compassionate than it is to be skeptical or full of hate or some type of language when there are critics from the couch. So off we went on the journey. And I knew it was the right approach because I had success with it in the private sector, but there were lots of moments of uncertainty. Was I communicating the right way? I mean, how many times have you done something that was bold, that you thought you were taking a chance, but you said, I'm going for it, and you wondered if it was going to work out or not? Well, that's how I felt as well. And how would people, would they respond? How long would it take? But I kept at it. I think one of the top things is to have constancy of purpose at whatever it is that you do. You usually outlast everybody if you've got something good. And in virtually every public appearance, I talked about our city value of compassion. And I still do now, 8.5 years later. So when you walk around Louisville and you talk to people about it, they're not going to look at you funny like you got 3 eyes if you ask them about compassion. So we are imperfect as a city. We're imperfect as people. We all are. But I think the sooner we realize, as Louisvillians, as Americans, we're on this journey together. So rather than to be cutting on each other, why don't we lift each other up? Because there is no doubt in my mind that we are all born with instincts of kindness. When you see little babies crawl, what do they want? They want a hug. They don't come up and slap you. They want a kiss. So if you're not feeling like your inner compassion right now, rediscover yourself. It feels good. So to do that, I referenced Muhammad Ali and Thomas Merton in our compassionate history anytime I could, in speeches, op-eds. I work to remind people that compassion is part of the identity of our city, and that by embracing this value, we're connecting ourselves today to a legacy that's part of who we are as a community, but that's much greater than any of us as individuals. Because people have a fundamental desire to be part of something that's bigger than themselves. Why do you come to Louisville for CNU 27? You're here as a family. You're creating things. When you leave here, you're going to be better as individuals, you're going to be better as a collective, and you're going to make the world a better place. Compassion helps focus and channel that instinct in a way that builds what I call social muscle. And that social muscle is the connective tissue that binds our community together, particularly in challenging times. Every family, every city is going to have a challenge, and it could be really severe. The question is, how do you respond? Do you turn on each other, or do you turn into each other? So to further develop those social muscles, we knew we needed to make public commitments and to organize, activate. On November 11 of 2011, the Louisville Metro Council and I formally committed to making Louisville a compassionate city by signing a resolution with the Charter for Compassion, committed to a 10-year Compassionate City campaign to identify community issues that need to be addressed, and took action to alleviate pain and suffering in our community. At the same time, an organization called Compassion in Louisville was created. This is a grassroots network of organizations who've adopted the Compassion Resolution and work to raise awareness and champion the growth of compassion through connections with different public and private organizations. A steering committee and work groups were formed to focus on youth education, elderly, health care, neighborhoods. Compassionate Louisville work continues to this moment. We also created an event called Give a Day, an annual festival of volunteerism. Who teaches most of us about compassion? Who was your first teacher of compassion? If you're like me, it's your mom. So, first Give a Day, dedicated to my mom. Several hundred people turned out. It's evolved into a week of service, and it just continues to grow. This year in April, during Give a Day week, in partnership with Metro United Way, we broke our own world record for compassion with 235,000 volunteers and acts of compassion. That's about 1/3 of our city. So imagine if 1/3 of the United States of America stopped for a week and just helped each other. That would be about 115 million people in our country lifting their hands out, opening a door, just helping people. It's really a simple notion. Why don't we do it? I can tell you during the week of service, I love the looks of joy on people's face, because can be measured physically. When we help each other, you get a good feeling just by the simple act of helping. So we know it's a natural way of doing things, a good thing, a sense of connection that it creates. And we've seen compassion take hold in other ways as well. The University of Louisville Medical School now, the physician to the Dalai Lama comes every year and welcomes our new medical students and teaches them about compassion and mindfulness and education as part of their curriculum. University of Louisville's Envirome Institute, which studies the relationship between people and its environment, is led by Dr. Aruni Bhatnagar, who's a global leader now in the emerging field of environmental medicine. The Envirome Institute has developed innovative programs like the Green Heart Project, which is a partnership between the Nature Conservancy and University of Louisville and the Center for the Envirome, which is helping to prove that vegetative medicine or environmental medicine can increase the health of human beings as we crowdsource data that demonstrates that. I learned an example just last week that I got a big kick out of. The River City Paddle Sports organizes Mindful Mondays, where they have a weekly rowing trip where they get out on the Ohio River, they go up Beargrass Creek, you saw that as one of your legacy projects, and then they paddle back in mindful silence. How about that? And one of the most exciting innovations has been the Compassionate Schools Project. When you think about the challenges that kids in all of our cities have, we have kids growing up in traumatic environments in every city in America. They show up at kindergarten on day one at the age of 6, 3 years behind our most advantaged kids. How would you feel if you were that mom or that dad, holding your hand of your child, walking them to school, knowing that your kid's 3 years behind? So the Compassionate Schools Project is a first-of-its-kind curriculum teaching mindfulness and compassion in elementary schools to help kids, especially those dealing with trauma, who struggle with both self-love and self-control. And it helps accelerate brain development. Let's take a look at a short video about the Compassionate Schools Project.
At first, I didn't really know what to expect because it's never been something that I've experienced before. Like, I've never had like a class devoted to how to be mindful.
It's different because there's not like chairs and desks everywhere.
It is absolutely like nothing else anyone has ever seen before, but it's a wonderful change. We have students who aren't necessarily ready to come to school and aren't in great positions to learn. What Compassionate Schools is doing is it's helping students learn those appropriate coping strategies. How do we solve problems? What is this emotion that I'm feeling right now?
Everybody sit up nice and tall.
Before, it was just calm down. We'd simply say calm down. Now we're teaching them strategies that they can actually use and benefit from throughout life. This has been kind of the missing piece.
What I like about the Compassionate School Project is that what problems I have at home, I can release them during CSP. Usually when I come in here, something has happened during the day and it just helps me calm down.
Having a younger brother and sister, having to take tests.
Sometimes when my cousin's over, he drives me nuts a little, and he woke me up this morning and drove me nuts. And I like coming in here because it's very easy to take the stuff that you had in the morning or in your life away.
What I've noticed is students really are fascinated with that idea of compassion for other people, and I think it seems like something they've almost been craving.
Mindful means that you take your thoughts, your inner feelings, and you use them in your benefit to get through your day, to worry about yourself, to deal with frustration.
It's a big difference because I have used what Mr. Wedding has taught me. I take it to classes and at home, teaching my parents what I've learned in CSP.
I think that we want our world to be a more peaceful place, and we want our citizens to be more thoughtful and more mindful about the decisions that they make when they're interacting with one another.
The Compassionate Schools Project has been featured in many publications, Time Magazine most recently. The research covers 50 schools and 20,000 children here in Louisville. We're tracking this over 7 years. So what we're hoping to prove is this breakthrough curriculum is able to advance a child's cognitive ability, their social interactions, so that they can learn better and that they can be prepared for a more successful life. Compassion has other applications. It helps helps guide our decisions about economic development, because there's no question we have to change the status quo in some of our neighborhoods, not just here in our city, but all over the country. We have made a deliberate effort and results in our 8 years in office to invest in underinvested areas of our city. Over $1 billion has been invested in the 9 neighborhoods of West Louisville. They have struggled because of historic disinvestment. And many of the people that live in these neighborhoods struggle because they were denied the opportunity to create and pass on generational wealth because of racist practices and policies like redlining and urban renewal. Part of being a compassionate city means acknowledging that our city government and others have not always been interested in compassion, and in fact, once worked to prevent some citizens from realizing their full human potential. Muhammad Ali, then Cassius Clay, grew up in West Louisville, 3302 Grand Avenue. He was a product of that era. Even after he came home from the Olympics with a gold medal in boxing, he was still denied the respect everyone deserved in the segregated South. Here's an interview he did with the BBC in 1971. He's talking about when he was on the medal stand at the 1960 Olympics in Rome.
Won the Olympic gold medal in Rome, Italy. Olympic champion, the Russian standing right here, and the Pole right here. Is Poland considered a communist country?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm defeating America's so-called threats or enemies. And the flag is going ton 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 ton. I'm standing so proud. Ton 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 ton. And I done whooped the world for America. Ton 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 ton. I took my gold medal, thought I'd invented something. I said, man, I know I'm going to get my people freedom there. I'm the champion of the whole world, the Olympic champion. I know I can eat downtown now. And I went downtown that day, had my big old medal on, and went in the restaurants. At that time, black things weren't integrated. The black folks couldn't eat downtown. And I went downtown, I sat down, and I said, a cup of coffee, hot dog. The lady said, we don't serve Negroes. I was so mad. I said, I don't eat them either. Just give me a couple of hamburgers. You know, I said, I'm the Olympic gold medal. 3 days ago, I fought for this country in Rome. I won the gold medal, and I'm going to eat. The manager, I heard her tell the manager, and he said, well, I'm not the man now. He's got to go out. Anyway, I didn't raise no hell. They put me out. And I had to leave that restaurant in my hometown where I went to church and served in their Christianity and fought, and daddy fought in all the wars. Just won the gold medal and couldn't eat downtown. I said, something's wrong. And from then on, I've been a Muslim.
So in that story, Muhammad obviously takes a painful moment and uses humor to make it a story that enlightens people. As a Louisvillian, I can tell you it's hard to hear that story, but I believe we have to own our own history, all of it, the proud moments and the painful, in order to move forward as a city. And we have to all move forward together. That's what a compassionate city does. And that can be a challenge, particularly today, when we witness the attempts by some to make this a time of great division in our country. We must reject all attempts at hate and all attempts to divide us. I believe, and I witness, there is a yearning throughout America for cities that run counter to this painful national narrative that we're having to endure. America is looking for cities that are innovative, entrepreneurial, equitable, and compassionate, cities that can come together and embrace the universal value of compassion that makes it possible. The Dalai Lama is the Buddha of compassion. I like to call him a strategic partner of our city and our compassion efforts. He finds it interesting that a city is trying to be a compassionate city. And he puts it really simply. To be happy, practice compassion. To make others happy, be compassionate. It's not that difficult. Yes, Ali's story gives us proof, but we all have our own stories as well. I'd like to show you one more video. Lonnie talked about the experience of Ali Week 2016 when the champ came home for his final rest. My office is producing a documentary about that week because we feel like, just as Ali was a unique figure in human history, that week was unique as well. 1 billion people watched on TV. 100,000 people lined our streets for his procession. And the worldwide audience who watched his memorial service on TV and online was really innumerable. Here are some of the highlights.
What our kids can do if we help them realize their full human potential.
So let me tell you a story about a man. His name is Muhammad Ali. He is the greatest of all time. He is from Louisville, Kentucky, and he lives in each and every one of us. And his story is far from over. Thank you.
So that is a legacy to build on. That shows us what compassion looks like, and it shows us what compassion can do in our cities. And while there can only be one Muhammad Ali, his journey from Grand Avenue to global icon serves as a reminder that there are young people with the potential for greatness in houses and neighborhoods all over each and every one of our cities. There is no limit to what our kids and our neighbors can do if we help them realize their full human potential. And there is no excuse for us to do anything less than our best to help them find that greatness in themselves. That is how we can all become champions. Thank you for coming to our city.